So hello, my name is Leigh Doyle, and I am on the board, like Paula said, and I also work for the production management group in Columbia doing direct mail production for various nonprofits. So for the last several years, since I graduated from Salisbury, actually, I have worked with the board on the MAXI and now the co-chair with Courtney. And so today I'm just going to go over what the Collegiate MAXI is and what the students and teachers and companies can benefit from it. So to start with, the Collegiate MAXI is a competition program where we have teams from different universities in the area come and have a chance to take what they learn in the classroom and really put it to use. So every semester we do a spring and a fall competition. We have a different case that presents a challenge to them, and they can kind of form a team in different ways, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes, and try to solve our answer. And it's a case competition where they present orally, this team of judges, and the most exciting part for students is they can often have a chance to win some money. So there's an incentive for them to participate. But the Collegiate MAXI in itself is a case competition where students have a chance to apply their principles, and it's most often, didn't always, but in recent years, a nonprofit scenario. So before we get into really more about the MAXI, we thought the best effective for you to see one of our presentations. And so in November, we had the fall MAXI, and we had 4 teams participate from 3 different schools, and we had one case for the disabled American veterans. So the students get a whole outline of a budget and like a guideline of what to give us. We need a presentation, we need a summary of what they've done and different things. The only thing they get for the actual case is they get the background of the organization, which looks something like this for DAV, that is written for them to give them a background on the organization and to be able to answer the question. So they got 1-page PDF that kind of just gives them the history, and then it gives them the challenge. So the challenge for this time was to design a multi-channel marketing campaign specifically for DAV that will re-engage lapsed donors to the organization. And the campaign should include social media, email, direct mail communications. And sometimes they're a little longer, often they are pretty simple. Sometimes it'll be trying to engage students in different ways or different audiences or trying to re-engage audiences. There's lots of different challenges that we've had in the past, but nothing too complicated. But so to start off, we're actually just gonna go ahead and watch the winning team, and I see Irina is here, but we're gonna watch the gold team from November and watch the presentation so you can kind of get a sense of what a MAXI looks like from a collegiate level point and how the students present it and kind of different ways before we talk about other ways to use it. So without further ado.
Good morning. Thank you all for your time today. We're from Salisbury University. My name is Teresa.
My name is Liz.
And my name's Helen.
Next slide, please. So today we're going to be presenting our marketing strategy for the organization Disabled American Veterans to re-engage their lapsed donors. Our campaign is titled 100 Thank Yous to highlight the DAV's 100th year anniversary and express appreciation to our donors. Our message is going to be consistent across email, direct mail, and social media platforms to reach our whole target audience. We're focused on re-engaging those lapsed donors, but also retaining them and holding their interest by showing them that they're really making a difference. And from our calculations, we found that our campaign will result in $787,700 in revenue for the DAV. Next slide, please. So here we have our SWOT analysis to show you all some research that we conducted on the organization in order to determine our best course of action. And we found that the strengths of the DAV are really rooted in the fact that this is their 100th year helping veterans. They're a long-term organization, and it's really great because they contribute 95% of their proceeds to the services that they offer for veterans, which is significant compared to their competitors. In addition, we found that their weaknesses really come from the lack of communication and expression of appreciation to their donors. However, this really gives us an opportunity to fix that and capitalize on targeting our donors and making sure that they feel like the organization is engaging with them in a positive way. Next slide, please. So our strategy, as I've mentioned before, is focusing on the idea of 100 thank yous. Our goal is to make the donor our hero and to really make sure that they know that they're appreciated and needed. We have a really strong direct mail piece that's a gift for past donors in order to help them feel that love, as well as the video that's incorporated throughout our whole campaign that will capture the 100 years of impact that the DAV has made and what they've been able to accomplish with the donors' help. So we also segmented our donors by the amount that they donate and their age in order to target them as efficiently as possible. You can see on the screen there that we have an infographic example of something that can be used on the donation landing page and throughout our campaign in order to show possible donors what they can do specifically and how their donation is contributing to certain causes. Next slide, please.
All right, so here's an overview of our team segmentation. We start out with 9.5 million lapsed donors, and then from there, we use recency and frequency as a basis of our segmentation to reduce that number down to 787,700 lapsed donors. So using the RFM segmentation model will help the DAV find the most valued lapsed donors within the past 5 years. And with all that being said, we want to recapture that 787,700 lapsed donors who have donated more than once in the past 5 years. And if the lapsed donors criteria is not met within that 5-year span, then we would analyze the prior years in order to reach the target market of 787,700 lapsed donors. So our recency may vary depending on our RFM analysis. And then once this analysis is complete, we will further segment by using age segmentation, which helps with our communication strategy through each platform, which are direct mail, email, and social media. Next slide, please. So we based our segments off a statistic found by the Data and Marketing Association, which stated that consumers aged 45 to 54 years old are likely to respond to direct mail with an average response rate of 14.1%. So here's an overview of our platform segments. Direct mail will be sent to individuals who are 45 years older and up, which will reach an audience size of 26,700 lapsed donors. Our email piece will be sent to individuals between the ages 30 to 44, which is our largest audience at 731,000 lapsed donors. Lastly, social media will launch paid search ads to individuals ages 18 through 29, and this will have an audience size of 30,000 lapsed donors. Next slide, please.
Alrighty, so the big question of our whole campaign is, why do donors stop giving? And through our research, we were able to determine that 18% of people stop donating due to the lack of communication or poor service. 13% stop donating simply because they never received a thank you. And 6% of people stopped donating because they believed other causes were more worthy or deserving. Overall, that's 60% of lapsed donors. So in our campaign, we have designed a strategy, use of email marketing, social advertisements, and through an amazing direct mail piece, your listeners will come back. And so here in our direct mail piece, when building this campaign, we came up with this brilliant idea that would help steer away from the normal. We wanted to create something that would be fun and interactive to impress our donors and grab their attention. When a donor first receives this box, they'll notice that there is a printed ribbon on there. So it appears more as a gift. And I don't know about you guys, but I love gifts, so as do a lot of people. So it will definitely increase their chances of opening the gift. Now the design of this is what makes it super cool. Upon opening, once you take out the first frame, it'll act as a surprise box, so it'll kind of lay flat. And then it'll consist of 5 different panels. So in the inside, top panel, it'll contain like, thank you for your previous support, things like that. And then our right side panel will contain some statistics from our DAV 100-year video, which I will address in a few minutes. Left side panel will feature a veteran, one who needs your support. The bottom panel will contain our QR code, which is if you take out your mobile device and you scan it, it'll take you to the link of our 100 years DAV video, sorry. And then our center panel will be like our call to action, please donate. And then it'll just act as, we need your support, please help us, we could be nothing without you. In the inside, we have designed a COVID-19 care kit. So this will consist of a custom DAV mask and hand sanitizer. It'll also contain our donation letter, donation form, and then a previously stamped return envelope, just in case like the donor decides they want to donate that way, we can send that back out with no problems. And then, of course, as mentioned, on the bottom panel, it's going to contain our QR code. And then a little bit about our video and QR code. The QR code will act as like it's going to spark interest. So people will want to find out what is behind that thing. It'll gain access to our DAV 100 Years video, as said. In our video, it's going to give us like a overview of what the DAV does, why they're important, why we need to keep pushing people to donate. It'll show that they pay for a certain amount of surgeries for veterans. They provide rides to medical facilities. They support veterans in their battle with PTSD. The DAV also helps find employment for veterans, and it provides college scholarships. So it's a super important video.
So here we have our email campaign. Our first email that's right here is going out to lapsed donors between the ages of 30 and 44. And it has the subject, Celebrating You, Our Hero for 100 Years. So this has our consistent message of showing our appreciation for the donor and making sure that they know that they're appreciated. Emphasizing that they help veterans together, and with their help, they've accomplished some of the things listed in the email below. The word choice itself is really appreciative and engaging to keep their attention and draw them into the video. It's the same one that's on the QR code from the direct mail piece that highlights what the DAV has done throughout their 100 years. Continuing to make them feel loved with their donation, making an impact yesterday, today, tomorrow, and all the time. And our call to action button with support veterans now, leading them to donate. And then the second email there is an example of what will be sent after a donation is made. So this goes for our lapsed donors once they donate from our calls to action, or any new donors from the existing landing page website immediately after they make the donation. We know from our research that there's really lack of communication and failing to engage enough with donors. But this email has a subject, thank you, like your donation matters, which is self-explanatory there. And again, has very appreciative and engaging word choice. This example in particular confirms the donation of $100, mentions if the donation was made in honor or memory of someone. And then what's new is that we include what service or cause the money is going to, like we listed in the infographic. And this is really gonna help the donors feel engaged and help draw them in and retain them because they're seeing the actual impact that their money is making. Next slide, please. Now here's our email workflow. It shows our efforts at really retaining those donors and keeping them. So it starts with our donors, 100 thank yous, which hopefully get us a donation. And then from that donation, they'll be sent a second email matching the amount that they donated to a certain cause. And then continuing from there, because we're dedicated to staying communicating and showing them what they're doing matters. We'll have a follow-up email in a week or so with more ways to give more details. Now, if we don't get a donation the first ask, no worries. Second ask, same appreciative verbiage and details about how they've helped in the past and how we still need their help. So that'll hopefully lead to a donation, and then same deal as before, the thank you email matching the amount to a cause, and then they will also get the ways to give follow-up email after that as well. Next slide, please.
Alrighty, so here's our social advertisements. Our social advertisements are acting as a promotional tool with the main point and idea that we kept in our heads was that we wanted our donors to receive the same consistent message on all platforms. So our social advertisements include all the same graphics, verbiage, and of course the DAV 100 Years video as is contained in our direct mail gift and in our emails. We wanted this to put emphasis on impacting our donors and making them feel appreciated. We also include our, as said, 100 Years video, sorry. When using social media platforms, Facebook in particular is one that is super neat. They have some super cool promotional tools on there. Facebook Ads Manager gives you the opportunity to upload house lists. And based on those lists, you will use them to show our advertisements to our selected and targeted audience, which in this case would be 18 to 29 years old, going down to 30,000 lapsed donors.
So now that you've gotten a glimpse of our campaign, here are our numbers. With our budget of $100,000, we're able to accumulate $134,173.50 in revenue and a total ROI of 134.18%. If you look at the ROI calculations, we were able to cut the costs of lists because we will be using our house list from our segmentation model. We also anticipate a higher rate of response for our direct mail piece at 14.1%, based on the statistic we found by the Data and Marketing Association, along with our package design and the fact that it's being delivered to the door rather than your mailbox. And even though these numbers are great, they can still be better, and this is how. Next slide, please. A study done by the Fundraising Effectiveness Project, FEP, found that 4% of lapsed donors on average come back. And you might be thinking, so what? Next slide, please. So with this statistic, we're able to calculate our campaign's optimistic ROI. So as for the calculation statement, if 4% of our targeted 787,700 lapsed donors re-engage, we can expect 31,508 people to make an average donation of $25 as a result of our campaign. And this will bring in $787,700 of revenue and an ROI of 787.75%. Next slide, please.
So thank you guys so much for taking.
So from there, I'm just going to talk about a little bit about the benefits for students. From that video, you can see that the students kind of really delved into the topic. And I know you guys have an RFM when I first joined, but they talked about RFM, retention, they used the SWOT analysis, creative strategies, and segmentation. And it was clear that it was like a great project for them to do, and that they were really interested in the topic with the research that they had, which I think led to their well thought out presentation. This year was the first year we actually have done the presentation virtually, which is why they're recorded. Normally they're done in person, and the students also get a chance to see an office where we hold them and usually take a tour of the office and meet some people that work there. And then, so one of the students from that video actually sent me a quote that said that having the experience helped them to feel better and equipped to tackle projects they'll face in their career. She was a senior, so she is looking to move on and after graduating, and she was lucky that their team worked together to discover the strengths that they had. So for students, not only do they get to apply marketing principles and strategies that they learn in class to a real problem and real question, but they also get to learn to work together in a different way than just on a class project, because it really has a real world application to it, and especially if they're doing it as an extracurricular activity or something. Presentation skills, whether that be virtually this year or in person. Sometimes we've had teams that one person sort of is the dominant presenter and the rest of them are not. Other times it's very fair and even, and you can kind of just get the team dynamic from that too. But it's a good chance to present. They present often to not only 3 judges and several observers. Sometimes other students are watching when we are in person. Upwards of 3 or 4 other teams can be watching them. So it can be a little bit dramatic, but it's a good experience for them to have, not just in a classroom of their peers where they know everybody by the end of the semester and kind of get used to presenting in front of them. Teamwork, as I mentioned, the office tour and networking, they often talk to their students that are there and everyone else, and they also get a lot of constructive feedback from the judges, whether that be in person or this year it was written, to make sure they still got it, and we find that the feedback from the judges is often really helpful, one, to help them realize what they did really well and how they were able to succeed at what they were doing, but then also realize what they could have done better, because we will certainly give them some tips on maybe they could have delved a little further into topic, maybe there was something missing. I stopped the video, but there are about 5 minutes of questions afterwards that the judges get a chance to kind of clarify something or ask a question and see if they have the answer off the cuff and how they handle that. But it's definitely a learning experience, but many students feel like at the end of it, it was worth it. And even though it was a lot of work up front and in the presentation, that it's beneficial. So they're learning something. So that's for the students. But at the same time, it's also benefits for the organizations that we get to work with us. They get ideas that are different outside the box that they may not think of, or that they may not even think of a way to implement it. Often they may have to be scaled in order to be truly implemented, but that's not the point of the project. The point of the project is for students to just be creative. So we ask them to do, and that's okay. They also get exposure to the organizations. This time we only had one case, the DAV, so all 4 teams presented on the same challenge. Sometimes we have 2 and students can pick based on their interest. And then we have in the past also had some of the presentations that have been so well received that someone from the organization has actually asked students to come back and present to the board or present to other people on their team because they like ideas so much and they wanted to find ways to implement them. So there are definitely benefits for everyone's involved, and including the teachers. So as professors, there are current cases you can use and old cases that are available. So we do 1 or 2 a year at least. And another professor recently mentioned to me that they liked the variety of cases that can be done. So they can use it as a class assignment and students can choose which case they want to do. And that way they're not only reading the same assignment over and over again, but you're getting a variety of questions answered and you're seeing the students interact on the different cases trying to solve their question, and it's not just the same question for everybody. So there's multiple challenges that can be used in the classroom. We have many different ways that the people use it. Sometimes it's an in-class competition where a professor will assign the case or cases to their class and have the students work on it most of the semester, then present it to the class, and in some way, shape, or form, they have 1 or 2 winning teams from the class competition that then is allowed to come and present to our competition and have a chance to place. Other times it's an extracurricular assignment or clubs. Clubs will present the idea and students will form their own teams. Or had people, like 1 or 2 students in the business school want to do it and they have a graphic design friend that they want to have a team it's really open to any sort of way to present it. We've also had students that are doing an independent study, and this is one or part of their project, the independent study. So as far as the way that the Collegiate MAXI can be used in the classroom, there are definitely many different ways it can be used to supplement other things that you're doing in class, but also just to apply what you're teaching and how to use it. And so I know that video is a little bit long, but we really felt like it would show you what a Maxi can look like. All 4 presentations this year, the competition was very close. It's the closest scoring we've had since I can remember. So all 4 of them were really well put together, very clear, concise content, creative, and just really well done for college students, but also the organization loved them. So that's the other side of it, is that they really are well received. And so are there any questions or any other ways that you guys can think of that you could use a case like this in your classroom or in different ways?
No. It's not good.
Feel free to unmute if you want to ask a question or comment.
Leanne, this is Amy. I don't know if you spoke to this, but we do know that that Paula, when she was a professor at Salisbury, and perhaps others have used the old cases. You know, maybe they couldn't compete in the competition, but they were able to use an old case and bring that into the classroom for, you know, a project or something. So I don't know if you touched on that or not, but that was something that I thought was a great idea. You don't have to compete in the competition.
Right, and with that, you don't have to even use the case to create this whole long project like we did. You could have them answer it in a paper form, or the other ways you can have them answer the case and still use the cases in the classroom. It doesn't have to be necessarily an oral competition like we have, but there are other ways to just use the old cases. But yeah, we've had organizations from environmental organizations to human welfare, food organizations, so all sorts of topics that can be used so that you're also not reading the same assignment over and over again. Does anyone have any questions or comments on how they could use the Maxi?
For those who have won, where their classes have won the Maxis, do you want to speak up in terms of benefits or how you've used it, etc.?
I know my team, the presentation we just watched was the team I coached for the Maxi, and when they learned about that they scored, and even just going to their MAXI, it was very exciting experience for them. Paula and I, we have coached a team for the previous semester, but they didn't get to go to the competition because of COVID. And even though they didn't get to present and didn't get to compete in place, I know one of the students who was on that team, she took her work that she prepared for the MAXI case competition and she took it to her job interview. And then she landed a job just because she showed exactly what she did for this particular company and then what kind of campaign they were preparing for it. So I know it's a huge benefit to students to use those types of skills and practice and do the competitions and being able to put that on their resume and take to job interviews for sure.
And we've had that before. We've also had students where they said that one person after their interview, they got a job and they just said that it was just a good experience to talk about in an interview, like the fact that they had done this and what they learned from it and how they went on to benefit from it. So that's something that's common as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Just imagine when the question comes in, tell me about yourself. And instead of talking about, oh, I'm motivated and you just have a great experience, you open your folder and you go, here, let me show you. Here's what I've achieved. So that's a great benefit for students for sure. And just like Paula, I'm still using the old cases also in the classroom. So I let students, I split them in teams, 3-4 people in each team, and I get them to pick an old case. And they do a written report, they do a study, they do, they do the same things that they need to solve a problem. They have each case comes with a challenge. So they do exactly what the challenge is asking them to do for a particular client. And that is their final exam after direct and indirect marketing class. So that's how I'm using those old cases in the class for sure too. And the MAXI competitions are extracurricular in this case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and someone said the video was helpful. I have the entire video on YouTube if anyone wanted to see other presentations. This year we had 4 of them. So it's about an hour and 20 minutes to watch the entire thing and don't skip through questions. But if you wanted to see other presentations on the same one, we can provide the link to you. They're all on YouTube currently, since we were able to film them this year. And kind of get a sense of what it's like, because oftentimes we describe the competition and what the students present and how they have really creative ideas, but it's really sometimes hard to really explain the students doing the project until you can actually see it. So I think the video may, even though long, is hopefully helpful in explaining the type of projects we can get. But they're also very different. Every team comes with the same 2-sentence case and they'll have 4 completely different approaches to the challenge of how to re-engage the lapsed donors. And sometimes we'll have presentations and at the end we're still wondering if they really answered the question of the lapsed donors in this case or different things, but often they do answer it in some way, shape, or form, and they're all very different. So it's always interesting to see.
I will say too, when I was teaching digital marketing, that I took the old cases and I adapted them just to my digital marketing class because I wasn't teaching mail. So, but taught some integration. So think of it that way too. You can take a case and, just use particular channels that you may be teaching or particular strategies and adapt those cases.
I know Paula's had several teams.
The other thing that may be valuable for you to cherry pick if you're not interested in doing an entire MAXI is those budget pieces are relatively challenging for the students to understand how to use them and how to come up with a budget, how to actually calculate an ROI. And so again, there are lots of hidden little gems that you can cherry pick out of these things. And when I was doing them, so Irina is now teaching the class that I was teaching. And so one of the assignments was to actually turn in a SWOT analysis. And so you can pull the portions of a presentation apart and make them into classroom assignments that, to me, again, are very relevant to real world and things that they will be doing, much like the H&M example that Mary Beth was talking about with, the students are being tested and quizzed as they're going into interviews. And so the more real world examples they can bring in, the better. And so, you know, the thing that we'll have coming up next is we're going to bring in a career panel of people who have done some of these real world activities, and they'll be able to share with you some of their experiences with doing these different events. And Leanne, I was keying you, I was keying up. So talk about the DMAWEF and the basic 3 things that we provide.
As far as the 3 programs?
Yeah.
Make sure I got it right. So one of them is the Professors Institute that you're currently a part of, and that we have every year for professors. The other 2, one is the MAXI, so it's held twice a year. We are actually working on a spring competition now. We will be having one. We're working on the case, and it'll likely be virtual again this spring, but there will be more information coming on that soon. The third program is what we call Mentor for a Day, where often the students will be matched with a company in the area and be able to go and shadow for a full day. When students come to see us, we take them on a tour of a direct mail printer or mail shop and allow them to see how that all works, but they also get to kind of shadow me in the day of my life and meet people in the office and talk about different topics and have lunch and kind of just really see the different options. Because if we find that a lot of times with direct marketing, there are so many different types of jobs out there that students don't even really necessarily understand. I know I didn't. I actually was a student who did Mentor for a Day when I was a student a couple of years ago. So I had no idea what the options really were. And so it really allows them to just go and be in the office for a full day. And we find that students like that experience because they can ask questions or just, and whether you learn what you like about the company or you don't like about the company, sometimes they often also turn into job interviews later and internships, or even just a connection, whether it's maybe you didn't like something that we talked about, but you really were interested in one piece of it. And I know someone that can better help you, or you can shadow again to learn more about it. So again, right now those are on pause, but we are going to be releasing some, I guess we're going to call them informational interviews until we have a better name, where students can join probably a Zoom of some sort and talk with different professionals about their jobs and have questions for us, and we'll share some information about what we do and different ways to still sort of be getting that information out to students. But and we often have had students that have either won them or participated in the MAXI and then decided to shadow for a day, mentor for a day, and vice versa. Students that have come to mentor for a day and I've mentioned the MAXI and they were interested in going back to the professor. I think I saw somebody ask a question about how students are selected.
I think the first question was, how do people access the old cases and who do they contact for that?
Amy or I?
Yeah, if you know, an easy way is administrator@dmawef.org. Or if you want to reach out to Leanne and we can try to find, it would be helpful if you would tell us, you know, which one you were interested in, or if you just said, you know, we want the last 2 or something like that. So we're not sending you multiple files, but we're happy to look into our archives and send those out.
Yep.
And so there is the question: how are the teams selected, Leanne, for MAXI?
It really depends. Depends on if you're doing a competition in your class. A couple universities do that, and they send 2 teams, and then it's whoever wins competition. Others, I think, like Irina said, there's extracurricular. Students have to want to do it and choose to do it. But all teams do have a advisor or professor sponsor. So just so that we have a contact as well at the university, but it really depends on how you want to present to the students. Sometimes I've had students that pretty much do the whole thing by themselves and the professor just comes with them and they watch it. Other professors are more involved. So it really just depends on how you present it to your class. And for Mentor for a Day, student, same thing. We often have the students, they have to be, I guess, recommended or just come with a professor recommendation or sign off basically. So a recommendation, but just so that the students that we're sending into the companies have some interest in what we're doing and we know that they're going to present well.
And all of this is evolving, thank you to the online world.
Yes.
I think one other kind of tangible benefit is that typically there's also, and correct me if I'm wrong, Leanne, there's also usually a client that attends these presentations, or at least has sent the video of the presentation, and they reach out to the teams that win to thank them for their participation. So there's, you know, there's some connections and networking. Yeah.
And that's also what's led to, we've had a couple of times the presentations have gone so well, they've asked them to come present to their development team or their board or whatnot. Because even when, like, some of the ideas, sometimes there are a little out there, but there's something that the organizations can take from it. They can take a piece of it, just like you can take a piece of our case and kind of scale it down to what you need it for. And the organizations are always very grateful for the ideas, and they are so surprised, and it's really great to see.
And if I can just give a tip to anyone who is willing to coach one of these teams, the biggest piece of advice I can give you is to consistently ask them to reread the case, and are you answering the questions that are in the case? And that's not it. One of the hardest things I find with the students who go into industry and they're doing a mail campaign for a particular client, and what they keep coming to me is like, oh, if they would just redo their web page, the mail campaign might work. And I have to say to them, that's not what they hired you to do. And so the real world isn't necessarily what we can do in the classroom and vice versa, but really making sure that students understand that their job is to do what they've been asked to do. And that's been a big aha for a lot of the students that I've seen go into this industry. Is we try and teach them omni-channel, and they're only doing mail. And so it's a really interesting challenge of what we teach them in the classroom isn't always what they're doing, and vice versa.
And you'll see that in the presentation. Sometimes, like I said, they don't even, sometimes we've had in the past where their question isn't quite answered, but other times you'll see like really heavily focused on one piece because they think that's going to solve the whole problem, but they'll kind of be like, but you don't need that other part. And we're like, but we do need that other part. And so, and that sometimes often happens in the question and answers with the judges, because the judges will have a question and they'll kind of just talk back and forth and kind of get into a conversation of like, what was your thought process there? And then when we are in person afterwards, a lot of times you'll overhear conversations like, well, really, we probably would have done it this way, but we could have taken that piece. And it's kind of like the learning for the students just informally, but it's interesting. And I will see if we can put the website, all the cases on the website. We are in the process of a couple of things on the website, but I'll see what we can do about that.
And it looks like Liz has put out a link to at least the most recent case.
Right. And the fall one is still up there. I'll leave that one up there when the spring one goes up too. But the spring one will hopefully be up.
Great.
Yeah, and I know, Leigh, and you're making some changes to and updates to the website. So we could probably have a sub page where we just have those old cases that anybody could view. So
one of the things that's happened that's really been nice recently is the streamlining of the cases. So the way that what you will find is that the instructions for the case is there's a 2-page document that tells them basically what time and where things are. And so but it's very standard, and the budget is in that. And then you get a 1-page document that is about the case. And that's really the only thing that changes. So you really have now a relatively consistent process, and it's simpler to coach because you really know what the outcome and the things that need to be turned in and what the expectation level is. So thank you to the folks who came along before me and actually got that consolidation done. I think it's easier for the nonprofits to put a one-page document together than it was. And they used to be very long documents. Now it's relatively simple and straightforward as to what it is they're asking for.
Mm-hmm.
And so why don't we take first, Leanne, thank you. We appreciate it. I hope it's a little more clear what the MAXI, Collegiate MAXI is and the benefits that come from that. Leanne, thank you for being here. Everybody take about a 15-minute break. When we come back, we will, yes, we will have our career panel, which is often a highlight. And so we've got 3 past students who are now working in the industry. And so we'll see you all back at 4:30.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Leanne, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. I was typing to my. I'll talk to you
We really
later.
appreciate you being here.
No problem.
And if anybody has any questions, we'll forward them on to you.
Okay.
See ya.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Great.
Thank you.
Great, Paula. I'll be back.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same.
Yeah.